Welcome today to Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. I have with me today Wes Farnsworth, Wes or Wesley.
Either one's fine.
Either one's fine. Awesome. And I'm excited to get to know him and his journey and his faith and how it's inspiring and lighting our world, especially because the title of your book was so interesting to me. So I'm excited to see and hear that story behind it today. So, Wesley, tell us who you are and what it is you do and are doing.
Yeah, so I'm Wes Farnsworth. I'm the author of my debut book. It just came out on October 14th, and that is The Blueprint of Becoming, a practical guide to faith, failure, and finding your way forward. It's available anywhere books are sold. Both ebook and paperback versions are available. So a bit about me, I grew up as a pastor's kid. My dad was a full-time evangelist, and so he traveled the country speaking at whatever church would have him. And so he was on the road a lot, but it was cool in a lot of ways to see him being used by God. And so I grew up in the church. I like to say that it was a family business. If the church doors were open, we were there. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Sometimes I think we were there even if the custodian was cleaning. I mean, we were there all the time. But it was good. So grew up in the church, and as a result, I felt like for a long time I knew all of the answers. I knew to pray before meals. I knew that God healed sick people. I knew a lot of the Sunday school answers, but for a long time, my faith wasn't really my own until I became an adult and I started experiencing some things on my own. But also because of my upbringing and some, we'll say, self-imposed pressures, I felt like I needed to act a certain way or say certain things or do certain things in order to reflect positively on the church, on my parents who were both in the ministry in some way, shape, or form, and more importantly on God. And so as a result of that, I became what I like to refer to myself as a master chameleon, aka I became codependent. And as a codependent, I cared more about what other people thought about me and their opinions of me than I thought about myself. More importantly, what God thought about me. And so I was able to, as a result of that, though, I was able to blend into any environment. You want to put me in a room full of sports people, I can not talk sports the most knowledgeably, but I can talk sports enough to get along. I can talk theater, maybe a little bit, possibly. I might be the silent one in the group in that instance, but I can blend in. And unfortunately, that comes with downfalls because as a codependent, you want to blend into any environment. And when I was a teenager, I was put into a group of friends from work that started talking about a terminology that I had knew nothing about. And I became very curious about what that was because they were all laughing and joking and having fun. And so I went home and I did internet search for that terminology. Granted, it took forever because that was the day of dial-up internet. You had to really want to know.
Really had to want to know. I'll live through the
um,
squelching noise. Yes.
but I didn't want to be left out in the future. I wanted to be able to act or at least be somewhat knowledgeable to be able to participate and be accepted. And unfortunately, that terminology opened the door to pornography for me, which led to a 20-year addiction. And over the years, I tried many times to stop myself, and unfortunately had a lot of false starts, a lot of negative attempts for one reason or the other. So fast forward about 2018, 2019, I found this group called Celebrate Recovery because my church was starting a ministry there. And through that, I was able to experience life changes because I was able to go in and find a group of people that accepted me and loved me and welcomed me no matter who I was, what I was done, or what I had done or what I was going through. And so I was able to go in that night and really just talk about the things that I had been struggling with. And I was accepted. And that night, my life changed and I started experiencing some freedom from the addiction. And now I'm still a part of the ministry. The one thing that's great about Celebrate Recovery that I'll mention is a lot of people, when they think recovery, they think drugs and alcohol. But the one thing that's nice about Celebrate Recovery is it's for any kind of a hurt, any kind of a habit, any kind of a hang up. And so I like to say, whether you have an issue with picking your toenails, or overeating, or addiction to something like pornography or all drugs or alcohol or whatever, you're welcome there, and we can help you, or they can help you, and God can help you, because only 1 in 3 people that come to Celebrate Recovery are there for something like drugs and alcohol. The rest of us are there just for life issues. And so it's really a powerful ministry. But it was during one of those meetings that I heard a testimony given, and in that testimony, somebody said something. I can't tell you exactly what the person said, male or female, I don't remember, but they said something that kind of started off a chain reaction in my mind, because they said something that led me to think of the movie. Have you ever seen the movie Knight's Tale?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a scene in the movie Knight's Tale where there's a knight parading down the road, and young, I guess it would be Owen Wilson, I think, is the main character
I
there.
think so. Yeah.
Young, just as a boy, was in the crowd, and he's like, "I want to be like him." And Dad's like, "You can do that." And of course, there's a bystander nearby and says, "No, you can't do that. You can't change your stars." And that really kind of started getting me thinking, because I took that and I put a biblical spin on it. And I was like, a lot of us, when we're going through things or we're not saved, we are like that peasant boy. We want to change our stars, but we don't know how. And then when we experience God's grace and we accept him into our lives, we become transformed and we become a part of his royal family. So we become like that knight on the horse. He's now part of the royalty in some way, shape, or form. So we're now part of God's kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So as began the whole idea of changing our stars really started
Get
to
out there a little bit,
root
Wes.
in my mind and in my heart, and that's what led to
Go back to the end of the night story about becoming and being changed and transformed.
so as that story and that whole idea of transforming your stars began to take root, the book started to take shape in my mind. And so that's what the book is. It's all about the first couple chapters of my personal testimony, and then we really dive in and we take a look at biblical stories of people that were used by God despite their past. People like Saul, who became Paul,
Right.
or David, and just people that were used by God that other people would have said, the world would have said, you can't do that because of your past. But God said, watch me. He said, and
Right.
he took them and he used them. And so we explore those principles. And then I give some practical tools at the end of every chapter. And there's one chapter completely full of just practical tools that people can use to kind of dig into their lives and discover what stars in their constellation. So every action, every relationship at your job, they're all stars in your constellation of life. And so you begin to kind of figure out what stars, if you will, need to be dimmed, need to be removed, need to be, whatever, in order to make sure your constellation is in line with God, who should be your North Star. And so that's kind of what we look at through the book. And so, yeah, so that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
I love that you take in, and so many people give up, and the shame of any religion and any faith a lot of times keeps us from coming and turning to God and saying we're broken. And I love that you've taken and learned that it's okay to make mistakes. And whether we're a David, whether we're a Saul, we're all human. We're all fallen. We're all broken. And God wants and loves to redeem us. And
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that I love to talk about is people. I get this question a lot, is people are like, how can you talk so freely about things like your addiction? Because it's human nature for us to want to hide that away and not talk about it. And I just tell people, I'm like, I am not proud of the addiction. And if I could change it, I would, but I can't. And so I have a choice. I can either talk about it and bring it out into the light and share the story about how God has transformed me and broken me free of this addiction, and now share that message with other people and hopefully help them experience the same freedom if that's what they're dealing with. or to just realize that they're not defined by their past. Just because they're struggling with something now doesn't mean that they have to struggle with it forever. There is freedom to be found out there if you're willing to do it. Or I can not talk about it and let it kind of sneak back into the shadows, if you will. And when it's in the shadows, now it's in an area that the devil can begin to just take and turn it back into an area that has to be a secret and all of these things. And then you start having to, um, lie to cover it up or whatever. And then it starts to be able to fester and now he has a foothold in your life again. And so instead of letting it go into the shadows, I would much rather talk about it and share it and hopefully, God willing, help somebody else in their journey by doing so.
Exactly. When we keep silent, we only hurt ourselves and we're not able to become free from it. It's when we give up that to the God and to the world, and instead of keeping it in ourselves, we can't let go until we do. And it's
Right. And
hard.
there's a reason that there's a saying going around that says God will take your mess and turn it into a message.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you struggle with things like addictions to whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, that's part of your mess. And God can use it if you'll allow him to do that. And it's taken me a while to be able to accept that and to realize that it's okay to talk about it. And as a codependent, it's really hard for me because now I have basically a worldwide audience that could hear this and form their own opinions about me. And that's hard for me to even think about because I want everybody to like me. But if there's one thing that I've learned, especially through Celebrate Recovery, is I can't control what other people think or what they say or what they do. I can only speak my truth, and hopefully that will help somebody. And so as I've begun to step into that and realize that and walk in that, the book has come out now, which shares my story with a lot bigger audience than anybody I've ever shared with.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm doing podcasts where I'm talking about it like we're doing here today. And I'm starting to open myself up to speaking engagements, where I'm going to local churches I'm open to churches around the country, just sharing my story and talking about the freedom that people can find. Uh, and so that's what I'm doing now. And I'm excited to see how God is going to use it.
And that's exactly it right there, right? How letting God use us and that mess to our message. It doesn't matter what mess we have. We all have a mess. I'm a total mess.
We're all mess.
We're all a mess. And that's the beauty of it, right? I mean, he created us to have these human experiences. But when, like you say, when we can allow God to use us and help others, that's when the beauty is there. And I love that you are not hiding and learning that it is hard to anyone to share their stories and become public about anything in our lives, and especially when it's something so personal like that, and do that. What and who has inspired you in the past that you read or listened to that's given you this strength and this ability to move forward?
Man, I think I'm going to say probably one of my biggest inspirations is a song called by Matthew West,
Mhm.
called, oh shoot. I got to look it up now because
Perfectly fine. Yep. He's a Christian artist, right? I
he
remember.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just had it up too. Truth be told, I knew as soon as I
Better.
started looking up, I would find it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think one of my biggest is our song by Matthew West, who's a Christian artist, and the song is called "Truth Be Told."
Mhm.
And in that song, he talks about how I'm not okay, but everybody thinks that I am because I'm using the word "fine." When people come and ask you how you doing, you say, "Oh, I'm fine."
Fine. Yep.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good. But on the inside, we're really struggling. We're really broken. We're humans. We're broken. We're sinful. That's just our nature. But we put a mask on and we talk about we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. We're fine. And then he talks about how the church, if the church was actually acting like it should, the church would be more like a hospital and every pew would be full every single Sunday.
Mhm.
But instead, the church tends to act more like a I don't even know how I would put it. He doesn't put anything in the song, but I'm just going to say the church is holier than thou. And if somebody comes to them with an issue and they want to talk about things like pornography or sexual sin of any kind or whatever, that's not typically talked about within the church. And so people begin to feel like they can't go to church because they're not qualified or they're disqualified or whatever. And so I just love that song. It's kind of, I listen to it almost all the time, at least once a week, just because I love the song and the message that it has to it.
I love the beauty, especially of Christian music. No matter what faith, I've learned to come to love so many songs because the message and music speaks so much to us, and the lyrics they find a way. And sometimes it means one thing, and then later in our life, we come back to it and we're like, oh my goodness, it means something completely different now.
Yeah.
But the beauty of that, it just touches our souls and teaches us what we need to be taught in that moment is so incredible what God can do with music and things like that. And I love that message of that song. I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to that one. It's been a minute, but it
Yeah.
is
Well,
wonderful.
and music has a way of crossing demographics, crossing
Mhm.
political lines, crossing whatever it is that you have, and really just sharing the story where
Mhm.
we wouldn't be able to do it just by talking.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's one of the things I love about music. I like to read too, but I'm not an avid reader.
Mhm.
I tends to put me to sleep faster than anything else, if I'm being honest. Which I joke is funny
Okay.
because now I'm an author. You know,
Uh-huh.
I hate to read, but yet I wrote a book and I'm working on another one.
God uses
And
us.
but that's right.
He will turn our weak things to be strong when we allow him to with that. It's funny because my students are the same way. They're like, I'm not a good reader. I'm like, but you're writing a book.
Yep.
You're writing a story. You obviously is, but it's true. It's sometimes what we're strong in is not our weakness, but we can use that. And it's
Yep.
all right. Very good. So what is it you're hoping to have people? You've talked a lot about your message and your journey and stuff and what you're talking about. What is it you want people to get from this then and come to a realization of through your speaking engagements and through your novel, or not your novel, your books, as
Mhm.
they're coming out? What is it that you really want people to understand?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I want to mention one thing too.
Mhm.
Um, one of the big things that I find when you're struggling with anything, whether it be losing weight, whether it be an addiction of some kind, whether it be whatever, is it's a lot harder to do it alone than it
Mhm.
is with community.
Absolutely.
And so, with that thought in mind, if you go out to my website, blueprintofbecoming.com,
Mhm.
I have a free bundle that you can download. And in that bundle is a leader's guide and a participant's guide that turns my book into a 10-week study
Nice.
where you can go together with your friend or a couple friends. Just get yourself a small group, 5, 10 people max, and just go through the book. And chapter by chapter, I provide questions that you can do as a group to discuss it in addition to what's in the book. And you just go through it. And as you begin to realize things that maybe you need to change, now you have a built in network there, a built in group that you can go to, and they can help hold you accountable and support you in your journey of changing whatever that is. So again, that's available at my website, blueprintofbecoming.com.
That's incredible to have not just the book, but also like a way to make that an applicable part of your life and get that accountability. And you've really worked that in, like the ministry does, right? In that way. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, and then as I mentioned too, I'm available for speaking engagements, and you can reach out to me either through the book's website or my website, wesleyfarnsworth.com. And then to your question about what I try to hope or what I hope people walk away from everything with is, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you've come from, it doesn't matter what you've done, it doesn't matter how you were brought up. You can be used by God, and that does not have to define you. As long as you are willing to forgive yourself
Mm.
and then accept God's forgiveness, because He's already done it. He went and died on the cross for you and forgave you long before you were even around. You just have to ask for it.
Mhm.
And so if you ask for that forgiveness, and as long as you forgive yourself and accept his grace, then he will be there with you, and he will help you and guide you. And so you do not have to be defined by your past. You can move forward from it. And that is the biggest message that I hope people walk away from anything that I speak at with.
I really appreciate that message, because so many times, especially when you said forgiving ourselves, because often we're so good at forgiving each other and we're like all these things, but yet when it comes to ourselves, sometimes we're like, but I can't. And we put a limit on God, and it's, wait, what God can do with this? He's got it, and we've got to let him in to do that and ask for that. And remember, he did, he's already paid it. Just accept, and we're good to
Yeah.
go. And so many of my students, because I teach that 14 to 18 range there, is so interesting, because they think everything is so defined now, and everything they do right this moment is going to determine everything.
Yep.
And it's so not as urgent and dire as they make it out to be. And I wish they could see this backward perspective of like, it's okay, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I love. I have 4 kids. 2 of them are, well, one of them's in that age range, and the other one is getting ready to be there here any day, it seems like.
Good luck.
Um, and I love the just helping them try to realize, yeah, what you do today is important, and it does have an impact on your future, but it doesn't have to define your future. And and I mean, really, that's a message for any age.
Oh, yeah.
What you do today does impact tomorrow, and will impact a year from now in some way, shape, or form,
Mhm.
whether it be a physical impact or a mental impact or whatever, but it doesn't have to define it.
Mhm. You have choice.
That's right.
Absolutely. Wow, what a powerful message. And I'm so thankful and grateful that you would be so vulnerable to put your story out there. As a mom of 6 children who struggled with a variety of things, and struggling myself with a variety of things, all of us again struggling. It's so refreshing for people to share their stories and to make us feel safe, and that it's okay to share our stories and to speak out
Yeah,
our truths, so that others can learn and that we can become free of those things and remember who's got us.
absolutely. And I would encourage, you mentioned you're a mom of 6. This is not something that I typically say on podcasts, but I would just encourage, if you're a parent out there and you have children, sit down with them and talk to them. If you haven't already, talked to them about the things like pornography and the other natural curiosities that come with a teenager and hormones and stuff like that, and just let them know that you are a safe resource that they can talk to, without the fear of judgment, without the fear of repercussions, if they did mess up. And just make sure that they have a safe place of somebody that they can come and talk to. If you're a mom and you're a single mom, and you then find a man that can speak to your boys, and vice versa. Women or guys, find somebody that your girls can talk to, because it's important that they have that in their life if you want to try and keep them from long-term addictions, with things like this.
Absolutely. And it's hard conversations to have, and it doesn't always stop it, but
It is
at least
it
it's
is
there.
not it is not an easy conversation to had. I've had it, but it's an important one that needs to be had.
Truth is truth. That is for sure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Hey, everyone, go check out his book. Go to his website, get the study guide, get the leadership guide, get a friends together. And no matter where you're at in your journey and what you're struggling with, use this and use the Bible and your scriptures and God to help you through them. Know you are loved. We'll see you next time on Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. Thank you so much, Wes. It's been a pleasure to get to know you.
Thanks so much.